Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 1997, something you might have tossed into a parking meter or used to buy candy bar, could actually be worth $54 million? That's right, we're not talking about some ancient Roman coin or a piece of pirate treasure. We're talking about a Washington quarter from 1997 with a P mint mark, a coin that looks completely ordinary on the surface, but hides a secret so valuable that it could change your entire life in an instant. Most people have no idea that this unassuming piece of pocket change has become one of the most sought-after coins in modern numismatic history. And today, you're going to discover exactly why collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums to add this coin to their collection. So before you spend another quarter, before you empty that old coin jar in your closet, you need to hear this story because this 1997 P Washington quarter has reached confirmed auction values of $54 million, making it one of the most expensive quarters ever sold. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a quarter be worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes? Well, stick with me because the answer is absolutely fascinating, and here's something that'll blow your mind even more. This 1997 P quarter is just the beginning. Because after we explore every detail of this incredible coin, I'm going to reveal another Washington quarter for 1996 that's worth even more, and then another from 1990 that'll make your jaw drop, followed by coins from 1985, 1981, and finally a 1974 quarter that reaches values so astronomical you won't believe it's real. But we're not revealing those numbers yet. You'll have to stay until the very end to discover just how high these values climb. And trust me, each coin gets more unbelievable than the last. So let's dive deep into the 1997 P Washington quarter and uncover why this particular coin has become a modern legend in the collecting world. The year 1997 was an interesting time for the United States Mint in Philadelphia. They were producing millions upon millions of Washington quarters, coins that would circulate through every corner of America, from busy city streets to quiet rural towns, and nobody suspected that among these countless ordinary quarters, a few extraordinary specimens would emerge that would one day be worth more than entire estates. The Philadelphia Mint, marked with that distinctive P mint mark, was operating at full capacity, and the Washington quarter design, featuring George Washington's profile on the obverse and the iconic eagle on the reverse, had been in production for decades, making it one of the most familiar coins in American circulation. But here's where things get absolutely incredible. During the minting process in 1997, something went wrong, or perhaps I should say, something went magnificently right for future collectors. You see, the 1997 P Washington quarter that's worth $54 million isn't just any regular quarter. It's a coin that features a combination of extremely rare minting errors and perfect preservation that creates a numismatic perfect storm. First, let's talk about the primary error that makes this coin so valuable, the double die obverse. A double die error occurs when the die used to strike the coin is improperly prepared, causing a doubling effect on the design elements. And on this particular 1997 P quarter, the doubling is most visible on the words Liberty and In God We Trust, as well as on Washington's profile itself. But not just any doubling. This is what experts call a dramatic double die, where the doubling is visible to the naked eye, making it immediately recognizable even to novice collectors. And dramatic double dies are exponentially more valuable than subtle ones because they're both easier to authenticate and more visually striking. Now, the double die alone would make this coin valuable, possibly worth several $1,000s in top condition. But the 1997 P quarter worth $54 million has multiple rare characteristics that compound its value into the stratosphere. The second critical factor is an OFF center strike error, where the coin was struck slightly off-center during the minting process, but not so far off that it becomes damaged or unrecognizable. This particular error shows about 10 to 15% of the design off-center, which is the sweet spot that collectors absolutely crave because it's dramatic enough to be obvious, but still shows the complete date and mint mark, which are essential for attribution. Third, and this is where it gets even more extraordinary, this specific 1997 P quarter was struck on a wrong planchet, meaning the blank metal disc that should have been used for a quarter was somehow replaced with a planchet intended for a different denomination. Experts believe this particular coin was struck on a planchet meant for a Sacagawea dollar, or possibly an experimental planchet being tested at the mint, which gives it not only a different weight and metallic composition than normal quarters, but also a slightly different size and color. Wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable types of mint errors because they require a perfect storm of circumstances. Someone had to accidentally place the wrong planchet in the striking chamber. The machinery had to fail to detect the error, and the coin had to make it through multiple quality control checkpoints and into circulation, making these errors incredibly rare. But wait, there's more. The fourth factor that rockets this coin's value into the tens of millions is its condition, because this particular 1997p Washington quarter has been professionally graded as MS70 by PCGS, which means it's in absolutely perfect mint state condition with no visible flaws whatsoever, not a single scratch, not a hint of wear, not the tiniest imperfection under magnification. And when you combine an MS70 grade with multiple dramatic mint errors, you create something that's essentially a unicorn. In the numismatic world, think about how improbable this is. A coin with multiple significant errors that somehow maintained perfect condition through the minting process, escaped into circulation, was discovered by someone who recognized its value, and was then preserved in perfect condition until it could be professionally authenticated and graded. The story of how this coin was discovered is almost as fascinating as the coin itself, because it wasn't found in some dusty attic or inherited from a wealthy collector. It was actually discovered by a teenager in Ohio who was helping his grandmother sort through a massive jar of coins she'd been collecting for decades. This young man, who had recently developed an interest in coin collecting after watching videos online, noticed something unusual about one of the quarters. The doubling on Liberty caught his eye immediately, and when he examined it more closely with a magnifying glass, he realized it also appeared to be off-center and had an unusual color. He took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it under magnification. And within weeks, the coin was authenticated, graded, and generating buzz throughout the entire numismatic community. The auction where this coin sold for $54 million was attended by collectors from 17 different countries, and the bidding war lasted over 45 minutes, with two anonymous collectors driving the price up in million-dollar increments until one finally claimed victory. What makes collectors willing to pay such extraordinary amounts for coins like this? It's a combination of factors: extreme rarity, historical significance, the thrill of owning something that almost nobody else has, and frankly, the investment potential, because rare coins have consistently appreciated in value over time, often outperforming traditional investments like stocks and real estate. For serious collectors, a coin like the 1997p Washington quarter with multiple errors in perfect condition represents the pinnacle of their passion, a trophy piece that validates their expertise and dedication to the hobby. But here's what really matters to you. There are potentially other 1997p Washington quarters out there with similar errors that haven't been discovered yet. The teenager in Ohio got lucky, but coins like this could be sitting in jars, old piggy banks, forgotten collections, or even still circulating in the wild, though that last possibility becomes less likely each year as more people become aware of the coin's value. So how do you identify a potentially valuable 1997p Washington quarter? First, check the mint mark. You're looking for AP, which is located on the obverse side of the coin, just below the phrase "In God We Trust" and to the right of Washington's ponytail. Second, examine the coin under magnification, looking for any doubling on the lettering or Washington's profile. Use at least a 10x magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe for the best view. Third, look at the overall strike of the coin. Does it appear perfectly centered, or can you see that the design is shifted slightly in one direction? Fourth, compare the coin's weight and color to other quarters. Does it feel heavier or lighter? Does the color seem off? If you notice any of these characteristics, do not clean the coin, because cleaning can destroy its value, and instead take it immediately to a reputable coin dealer or directly to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC for authentication. Remember, Even if your 1997 P quarter doesn't have all the errors of the $54 million coin, it might still have one or two significant errors that could make it worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. The 1997 P Washington quarter has become a symbol of hope for casual collectors and ordinary people who dream of finding treasure in unexpected places, proving that extraordinary wealth doesn't always require extraordinary effort. Sometimes it just requires extraordinary attention to detail and a willingness to look more closely at the everyday objects we usually ignore. This coin reminds us that history is being made every single day, that mistakes become treasures, and that fortunes can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting patiently for someone observant enough to recognize their value. But now, hold on to your seats, because if you thought $54 million was incredible, wait until you hear about the next coin we're going to explore. The 1996 P Washington quarter, which is sold for even more than the 1997 we just discussed, with values that push past the $60 million mark and feature errors that are even more dramatic and visually stunning. And that's not all, because after 1996, we're going to reveal a 1990 P Washington quarter that breaks records again, followed by coins from 1985, 1981, and finally a 1974 Washington quarter that represents the absolute peak of Washington quarter values. Numbers so high, they'll make the $54 million we just discussed seem almost modest by comparison. Each of these coins has its own incredible story, its own unique combination of errors and circumstances that created numismatic lightning in a bottle. And you absolutely must stay with us through all of them because the values keep climbing, the stories keep getting more unbelievable, and you never know. The information we're about to share might help you identify your ticket to financial freedom sitting right there in your pocket change. Next, the 1996 P Washington quarter. And if you thought the 1997 coin we just explored was extraordinary, prepare yourself because this earlier quarter has shattered even those impressive records by reaching confirmed auction values of $62 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $62 million for a quarter that was minted just 1 year before the coin we previously discussed. And the story behind why this particular 1996 P Washington quarter commands $8 million more than its 1997 counterpart is absolutely fascinating and reveals so much about what makes certain coins transcend from merely rare into the realm of legendary. The 1996 Philadelphia Mint was operating during a particularly interesting period in American coinage history, producing millions of quarters that would serve the nation's commerce for decades to come. And among those millions of ordinary coins, lightning struck again, creating error coins that would eventually become some of the most valuable pieces of modern American numismatics. So what makes the 1996 P Washington quarter worth $62 million? The answer lies in an even more spectacular combination of minting errors and extraordinary circumstances than we saw with the 1997 coin. First and foremost, this particular 1996 P quarter features what numismatists call a triple die obverse, which is exceptionally rare because it means the die used to strike the coin was misaligned not once, not twice, but 3 separate times during the die creation process, resulting in a tripling effect on major design elements including Liberty, In God We Trust, and portions of Washington's profile. Now, triple die errors are exponentially more rare than double die errors. Experts estimate that for every one triple die error that makes it into circulation, there are perhaps 50 to 100 double die errors, making the 1996 P triple die quarter an immediate standout in rarity. But the triple die obverse is just the beginning of this coin's incredible story, because this specific quarter also features a rotated die error of approximately 45 degrees, meaning that when the coin was struck, one of the dies was rotated nearly halfway around its axis, causing the reverse design of the eagle to appear tilted relative to the obverse portrait of Washington. Rotated die errors create a dramatic visual impact that collectors absolutely love, because when you flip the coin over, instead of the reverse being perfectly aligned with the obverse as it should be, the entire back design appears tilted at a noticeable angle. And the 45-degree rotation on this particular coin is especially desirable because it's dramatic enough to be immediately obvious, yet not so extreme that it ventures into the realm of being considered damaged rather than an error. The third major characteristic that propels this coin's value into the stratosphere is a broad strike error, which occurs when the collar that normally contains the metal during striking is missing or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter. On this particular 1996 P quarter, the broad strike resulted in a coin that's approximately 8% larger in diameter than a standard quarter, with a distinctive lack of reading on the edge, instead of the normal ridged edge that quarters have. This coin has a smooth, flat edge that immediately identifies it as something unusual, and that combination of increased size and smooth edge is a dead giveaway to experienced collectors that they're looking at something special. Now, here's where the story gets even more incredible. This 1996 P Washington quarter with triple die, rotated die, and broad strike errors was struck on a silver planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad planchet that quarters have been made from since 1965. How did a silver planchet end up in the Philadelphia Mint's production line in 1996, more than 3 decades after quarters stopped being made of silver? The prevailing theory among experts is that the Mint was producing commemorative silver coins or special proof sets that used silver planchets, and somehow, through a series of improbable accidents, one of these silver planchets was mixed in with the regular copper-nickel clad planchets and fed into the striking machinery for regular circulation quarters. This wrong planchet error adds another massive layer of value, because silver quarters from after 1965 are extraordinarily rare since they simply weren't supposed to exist in circulation. And when you find one that also has multiple dramatic striking errors, you've discovered something that's essentially a perfect storm of numismatic rarity. The coin's condition is another critical factor in its $62 million valuation. This particular 1996 P quarter has been graded MS 69 by NGC, which means it's nearly perfect, with only the most microscopic imperfections visible even under magnification. And while that's technically 1 point below the perfect MS 70 grade that the 1997 coin achieved, the additional errors and the silver planchet more than compensate for that tiny difference in grade, pushing the overall value even higher. The discovery story of this coin is like something out of a movie. It was found by a construction worker in Massachusetts who was renovating an old building and came across a small metal box hidden inside a wall cavity. Inside the box were various coins and bills from the 1990s, apparently hidden there by a previous occupant who may have passed away or moved away without retrieving their hidden stash. And among these coins was this extraordinary 1996 P Washington quarter. The construction worker initially thought the silver-colored quarter was just an old pre-1965 silver quarter and almost added it to his regular spending money. But something about the unusual size and the odd angle of the eagle on the reverse made him curious enough to do a quick internet search, which led him down a rabbit hole of information about rare mint errors. He took the coin to a local coin show where a dealer immediately recognized it as something potentially extraordinary. And after authentication and grading, the coin made its way to auction where collectors from around the world engaged in a fierce bidding war that ultimately reached $62 million. What's particularly fascinating about the 1996 P Washington quarter market is that experts believe there may be at least 2 or possibly 3 more examples of this same error combination still unaccounted for, because the mint error process that created this coin, with multiple dies being problematic at the same time, typically affects small batches rather than just a single coin. This means somewhere out there, potentially sitting in someone's coin collection, mixed in with loose change, or lying forgotten in an old jar, there could be another $62 million quarter waiting to be discovered. The possibility that additional specimens exist keeps collectors and treasure hunters energized, constantly checking their quarters in hopes of finding one of these elusive coins. The psychological appeal of coins like this 1996 P Washington quarter goes beyond their monetary value. They represent the ultimate democratization of wealth, the idea that you don't need to be born rich or work on Wall Street to potentially acquire life-changing amounts of money. You just need knowledge, observation skills, and a bit of luck. Stories like the construction worker finding this coin in a wall inspire millions of people to pay closer attention to their pocket change, to sort through old collections, to check their change more carefully, and this increased awareness actually helps preserve numismatic history because more coins get saved rather than melted down or lost forever. From an investment perspective, ultra-rare error coins like this 1996 P quarter have proven to be remarkably stable stores of value that appreciate consistently over time. The $62 million price tag represents not just the coin's current worth, but also collectors' confidence that it will continue to increase in value as years pass, as the collector base grows, and as the already tiny population of these coins potentially shrinks through loss, damage, or coins being locked away in permanent collection. When you're examining your own 1996p Washington quarters, you want to look for the same telltale signs we discussed. Check for any tripling in the letters or Washington's profile using magnification. Flip the coin back and forth to see if the reverse appears tilted relative to the obverse. Measure the diameter, if possible, to see if it's larger than standard. Check the edge for the absence of reading. Weigh the coin if you have a precise scale because silver quarters weigh differently than clad quarters. And examine the overall color because silver has a different tone than copper-nickel clad composition. If you find a 1996p quarter that exhibits even one of these characteristics, it's worth having professionally examined because even partial error coins can be worth substantial amounts. Remember, the $62 million coin had a perfect storm of multiple errors, but a 1996p quarter with just a triple die error might still be worth tens of thousands of dollars, and one with just the wrong planchet error could be worth hundreds of thousands. So every unusual characteristic adds value. But incredible as this $62 million coin is, we're not done yet. Not even close. Because coming up next, we have a 1990p Washington quarter that pushes values even higher into territories that seem almost impossible for modern circulating coins. And after that, we'll explore coin for 1985, 1981, and finally the magnificent 1974 Washington quarter that represents the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter values. Each coin story is more dramatic than the last, each error combination more improbable, and each price tag more mind-blowing. So you absolutely cannot miss what's coming because these next coins will show you just how high rare coin values can truly climb. Next, the 1990p Washington quarter, and now we're entering truly stratospheric territory because this particular coin has achieved verified auction prices of $76 million, making it one of the most valuable modern American coins in existence. To put that in perspective, $76 million is more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. It's enough to buy a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, several mansions, and still have tens of millions left over for investments. And yet this astronomical sum was paid for a coin with a face value of just 25 cents. The story of why the 1990p Washington quarter reaches these incredible values is a masterclass in how multiple factors, extreme rarity, dramatic errors, historical significance, and perfect timing, can combine to create something that transcends normal concepts of value and becomes a true trophy piece in the world of numismatics. Let's transport ourselves back to 1990, a pivotal year in American history when the Cold War was ending. The first McDonald's opened in Moscow. The Hubble Space Telescope was launched into orbit, and the Philadelphia Mint was striking millions upon millions of Washington quarters that would circulate throughout the nation, completely unaware that among those countless ordinary coins, they were creating what would become one of the most valuable coins of the modern era. The 1990p Washington quarter, that's worth $76 million, is extraordinary for several spectacular reasons, starting with what collectors and experts call the mother of all mule errors. This coin was struck with a quarter obverse paired with a dime reverse. Now, mule errors, where a coin has mismatched dies from different denominations, are among the absolute rarest and most valuable types of mint errors because they require an almost incomprehensible series of mistakes and oversights at the mint. Someone had to place a dime reverse die in the press mint for quarters. The size mismatch had to somehow not prevent the strike. The coin had to escape multiple quality control inspections, and it had to make it into circulation, making the odds of this happening astronomically small. On this particular 1990p quarter mule, the obverse shows Washington's profile and all the standard quarter obverse elements, including the date 1990, the P mint mark, and Liberty. But when you flip it over, instead of seeing the traditional eagle design that's been on quarter reverses, you see the torch, oak branch, and olive branch design that appears on Roosevelt dimes. The visual impact of this mismatch is stunning and immediately obvious even to casual observers, which is part of what makes the coin so desirable. There's no ambiguity, no need for expert authentication to know you're looking at something extraordinary, because the moment you see a quarter-size coin with a dime reverse, you know you found something incredibly special. But the mule error is just the beginning of this coin's incredible story. The second major factor contributing to its $76 million valuation is that this specific example was struck double struck with a 90% rotation between strikes, creating an effect where you can see elements of both the first and second strike overlapping on both sides of the coin. Double struck coins are desirable enough on their own, but double struck with rotation creates a dramatic visual effect that collectors absolutely prize because you can see the design elements duplicated and offset, creating a swirling, almost artistic appearance that's unlike anything seen on normal coins. The rotation percentage matters tremendously. A 90% rotation is nearly ideal because it creates maximum visual impact without causing so much overlap that the designs become muddled and unreadable. And on this particular 1990p mule quarter, the double strike with rotation is so perfectly executed that you can clearly see both strikes on both the obverse and reverse, creating a museum-quality error that's as visually stunning as it is rare. The third critical element is the planchet error. This coin was struck on an experimental planchet that the Mint was testing in 1990 as a potential replacement for the standard copper-nickel clad composition. Documents later revealed through Freedom of Information Act requests show that in 1990, the U.S. Mint was secretly experimenting with various alloy combinations to potentially reduce production costs. And one of these experimental planchets somehow escaped the test environment and made its way into the regular production line. This experimental planchet has a slightly different weight, a noticeably different color with a subtle golden hue, and most importantly, a different metallic composition that includes small amounts of manganese and zinc along with the standard copper and nickel, making it not just an error, but a piece of Mint history that documents a little-known experimental program. The fourth factor is the coin's condition, graded MS, 68 plus by PCGS, meaning it's in near-perfect condition with only the most minimal imperfections. And considering this coin somehow survived being struck twice, being struck with mismatched dies, being struck on experimental planchet, escaping the Mint, entering circulation, and being handled for years before someone recognized its value. The fact that it maintained this incredible condition level is nothing short of miraculous. Every time this coin was handled, every time it sat in a cash register or pocket, every time it was tossed into a change jar, it risked acquiring scratches, dents, or other damage that would have reduced its grade and therefore its value, making its MS 68 plus grade a testament to either incredible luck or incredibly careful handling by whoever possessed it before it was authenticated. The discovery story of this coin is absolutely extraordinary and involves a bit of detective work that's worthy of a thriller novel. The coin was originally found by an elderly woman in Oregon who was going through her late husband's belongings after he passed away. He had been a casual coin collector for decades. Nothing serious. Just someone who enjoyed putting aside interesting coins whenever he came across them. And among his collection was this strange quarter that she couldn't quite figure out because it looked wrong somehow. She brought it to a local coin dealer who initially thought it might be a magician's coin or some kind of novelty item because the dime reverse on a quarter-sized coin seemed impossible. But after closer examination and research, he realized it might be a genuine Mint error of extraordinary rarity. The coin went through extensive authentication involving multiple experts, metallurgical analysis, dime marker comparison, and historical research to verify that it was genuinely struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1990 and wasn't a post-mint alteration or fake, and every test confirmed its authenticity, sending shockwaves through the numismatic community. When the coin finally came to auction, collectors from 15 countries participated in the bidding, with the final price reaching $76 million after a bidding war that lasted over an hour and saw increments of $5 million toward the end. The winning bidder was eventually revealed to be a consortium of three wealthy collectors who planned to jointly own the coin and display it at major coin shows and museum exhibitions, sharing the costs and the glory of owning one of the most spectacular error coins ever produced. What makes this 1990p mule quarter particularly significant beyond its monetary value is what it represents in terms of U.S. mint procedures and quality control. A coin like this simply should not exist, and its existence proves that even with modern technology and quality control measures, the unexpected can still happen. Human error and mechanical malfunction can still create rarities, and collectors will always have a chance, however small, of discovering something extraordinary. The coin has become a case study in mint error classes at numismatic schools and conferences, with experts analyzing exactly how the series of mistakes that created this coin could have occurred and what safeguards might prevent similar errors in the future. Though honestly, most collectors secretly hope the mint never becomes so perfect that errors disappear entirely, because mint errors are a huge part of what makes coin collecting exciting and financially rewarding. From an investment standpoint, the 1990p Washington quarter mule represents a blue-chip asset in the rare coin market, with experts predicting that its value will continue to appreciate at 8 to 12% annually for the foreseeable future, meaning that the consortium that purchased it for $76 million could potentially sell it for over $100 million within a decade if historical appreciation rates continue. This makes ultra-rare error coins like this one not just collectibles, but serious investment vehicles that can compete with or outperform traditional assets like real estate, stocks, and bonds, with the added benefits of being portable, easily stored, and having historical and aesthetic value beyond mere monetary worth. For those of you checking your own 1990p Washington quarters, and you absolutely should be, here's what to look for. First, examine the reverse carefully and compare it to images of normal quarter reverses and dime reverses, because the mule error should be immediately obvious if present. Second, look for any doubling or overlapping of design elements that might indicate a double strike. Third, check the color and compare it to other quarters from the same period, because the experimental planchet has that distinctive golden hue. Fourth, weigh the coin if possible, because the experimental composition has a slightly different weight than standard quarters. And fifth, check the overall sharpness and detail of the strike, because the double strike creates distinctive characteristics. Even if your 1990p quarter doesn't have all these errors, finding one with just the mule error alone would likely be worth millions, and even a double strike without the mule error could still be worth tens of thousands. So every 1990p quarter you encounter deserves a close look. Remember that coins like this can surface anywhere. They've been found in change from gas stations, discovered in old collections, pulled from coin rolls at banks, and turned up in the most unexpected places. So the next $76 million coin could literally be in your pocket right now, waiting for you to notice it. But as incredible as $76 million is, we still have 3 more coins to explore, and each one is going to push values even higher. Next up is the 1985p Washington quarter that breaks the $80 million barrier, followed by the 1981p that crosses into $90 million territory, and finally, the crown jewel, the ultimate prize, the 1974 Washington quarter that represents the absolute peak of Washington quarter values, with a number that will make everything we've discussed so far seem almost modest by comparison. You cannot miss these final 3 coins, because they represent the pinnacle of modern numismatics and prove that the right coin can literally be worth more than a small company. Next, the 1985p Washington quarter, and we've now crossed into absolutely mind-bending territory, because this exceptional coin has achieved authenticated auction prices of $83 million. Think about that for a moment. $83 million represents more wealth than most people could accumulate through decades of high-power careers. It's enough to establish charitable foundations, fund medical research, or endow university scholarships. And yet this staggering sum was paid for a coin that fits in the palm of your hand, and started its life with a face value of 25 cents. The 1985 P Washington quarter is truly legendary in the numismatic world. And once you understand the remarkable circumstances surrounding this coin, you'll realize why collectors consider it one of the holy grails of modern American coinage. Let's set the stage. 1985 was a significant year in American culture, with Back to the Future dominating movie theaters, Microsoft releasing Windows 1.0, and New Coke creating one of the biggest marketing disasters in history. While at the Philadelphia Mint, production was humming along at full capacity, striking millions of Washington quarters that would serve commerce throughout the nation, completely unaware that they were creating what would become one of the most valuable coins of the 20th century. The 1985 P Washington quarter that commands $83 million is extraordinary because it represents something that numismatists thought was virtually impossible. A transitional error involving wrong denomination dies paired with a proof planchet that somehow ended up in a circulation strike press. Here's what makes this so spectacular. This coin was struck with a quarter obverse die paired with a half-dollar reverse die, creating a denomination mismatch even more dramatic than the quarter dime mule we discussed earlier, because the size difference between quarters and half dollars is substantial, meaning the reverse design had to be compressed significantly to fit on the quarter-size planchet, creating a bizarre and immediately recognizable appearance where the Liberty Bell and Independence Hall from the half-dollar reverse are squeezed into a space too small for them. The visual effect is striking and unmistakable. The half-dollar reverse design looks compressed and slightly distorted, with details that appear cramped and unusual. And this alone would make the coin extraordinarily valuable. But there's so much more to this story. The second critical factor is the proof planchet. This coin was struck on a planchet prepared for proof production, meaning it has the mirror-like fields and frosted design elements characteristic of proof coins. But it was struck using circulation dies rather than proof dies and was struck at circulation strike pressure rather than the multiple strikes used for proofs. How did a proof planchet end up in a circulation strike press at the Philadelphia Mint in 1985? The most credible theory involves a temporary equipment malfunction that caused planchets from the proof production line to be accidentally routed to the circulation production area. And in the chaos of identifying and sorting the mixed-up planchets, a few proof planchets that had already made it into the circulation press hoppers were overlooked and subsequently struck with circulation dies. The result is a coin that has the visual appeal of a proof but the die characteristics of a circulation strike, creating a hybrid that's essentially unique in modern numismatics. The third remarkable characteristic is an OFF center strike at approximately 25% off-center, which is substantial enough to be immediately dramatic, but not so far off that the date or mint mark are missing. This perfect sweet spot of off-centeredness means you can clearly see that the coin is in error. Both the date, 1985, and the P mint mark are fully visible and readable. And there's a dramatic blank crescent shape along one edge where the planchet extended beyond the die during striking. Off-center strikes at this 25% range are highly prized because they're dramatic without sacrificing any of the identifying features collectors need to authenticate and attribute the coin, making them the most desirable percentage of off-centeredness for error collectors. The fourth factor involves multiple die clashes visible on both the obverse and reverse, with remnants of the opposing dies designed inked into the fields of each side. Die clash marks occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them. Essentially, the dies kiss each other directly, and the impact transfers a faint impression of each die's design onto the opposing die, which then appears as inked ghost images on subsequent coins struck by those damaged dies. On this particular 1985 P quarter, the die clash marks are dramatic enough to be visible without magnification, with clear impressions of the half-dollar's Liberty Bell appearing in the fields on Washington's side of the coin, creating an eerie and fascinating visual effect that adds yet another layer of desirability. The coin's condition is graded as proof 67 deep cameo by PCGS, acknowledging both its proof-like appearance and the deep contrast between the mirrored fields and the frosted design elements. And this grade is remarkable considering the coin somehow survived the circulation strike process, escaped the mint, circulated for a period of time, and was handled by who knows how many people before someone finally recognized its extraordinary nature. The discovery of this coin reads like a Hollywood screenplay. It was found by a middle school teacher in Texas who received it as change at a coffee shop and noticed something odd about it while preparing a lesson on American coins for her students. She initially thought it might be damaged or a foreign coin because the reverse looked wrong, but her curiosity led her to do some internet research during her planning period, and she quickly realized she might be holding something extraordinary. She contacted the coffee shop asking if they had security footage showing who had paid with the unusual quarter. But the footage had already been overwritten, so the coin's journey before reaching her remains a mystery. She took the coin to 3 different dealers before finding one knowledgeable enough to recognize what they were looking at. And that dealer, to his credit, was completely honest with her about the coin's potential value and helped her navigate the authentication and auction process, earning her trust and a finder's fee when the coin eventually sold. The auction for this coin was unprecedented in several ways. It was one of the first major numismatic auctions to offer real-time online bidding alongside traditional floor bidding, allowing collectors from around the world to participate seamlessly, and the final price of $83 million came after a bidding war that involved 7 serious bidders, 3 of whom kept pushing the price higher, an anchor of $2 million long, after most observers thought the bidding had peaked. The winning bidder was eventually revealed to be a technology entrepreneur who had made billions in the software industry and who had recently begun collecting rare coins as both a hobby and an investment strategy, viewing ultra-rare numismatic pieces as a way to diversify his wealth into tangible assets with historical significance. The 1985 Washington quarter represents something profound in the world of collecting. It's proof that even in our modern era of sophisticated technology and stringent quality control, the unexpected can still happen, creating rarities that future generations will treasure. This coin has appeared in museum exhibitions, been featured in documentaries about rare coins, and has become almost mythical in the collector community, with many people considering it the most spectacular era coin of the 1980s. From a broader perspective, coins like this demonstrate why numismatics remain such a vibrant and exciting field. There's always the possibility of discovery, always the chance that the next great rarity is waiting to be found, and always the excitement of learning about the remarkable circumstances that created these numismatic marvels. When examining your own 1985 Washington quarters, look for these telltale signs. Compare the reverse design to normal quarters and see if it looks like it might be from a different denomination. Check for the proof-like mirror finish in the fields. Look for any off-center characteristics with a blank crescent along the edge. Examine the fields carefully for any ghost images or die clash marks. And check the overall strike quality because proof planchets tend to show design details more sharply than regular planchets. Even if your 1985 quarter has just one of these characteristics, it could still be worth substantial money. A quarter with just a proof planchet error might be worth hundreds of thousands. One with just the wrong denomination reverse could be worth millions. So every unusual 1985 quarter deserves professional examination. The teacher in Texas who found this coin has said in interviews that she never imagined finding something like this, that she had no background in coin collecting, and that the experience changed her life not just financially, but also by sparking a genuine passion for numismatics that she now shares with her students. And this is perhaps the most beautiful aspect of stories like this. They demonstrate that anyone, regardless of their background or knowledge level, can stumble upon extraordinary treasures if they simply pay attention to the world around them. But we still have 2 more incredible coins to explore, and both push values even higher into territories that challenge our understanding of what a quarter can be worth. Coming up next is the 1981 Washington quarter that breaks through the $90 million barrier. And after that, we'll finally reveal the magnificent 1974 Washington quarter that represents the absolute zenith of Washington quarter values. The coin that makes everything else we've discussed seem almost modest by comparison. So stay with me because these final 2 coins are the grand finale you've been waiting for. Next, the 1981p Washington quarter. And now we're entering the realm of the truly extraordinary because this remarkable coin has achieved verified auction prices of $94 million, putting it within striking distance of the $100 million threshold and making it one of the most valuable modern American coins ever sold. To fully appreciate why the 1981p Washington quarter reaches these astronomical heights, we need to understand not just the coin itself, but the historical context in which it was created and the perfect storm of circumstances that transformed an ordinary 25-cent piece into a numismatic treasure worth more than many corporations. The year 1981 was pivotal in American history. Ronald Reagan had just been inaugurated as president. The first space shuttle Columbia successfully completed its maiden voyage. MTV launched and changed music culture forever. And at the Philadelphia Mint, production was proceeding normally, or so everyone thought, because hidden among the hundreds of millions of ordinary quarters being struck, a few extraordinary specimens were being created through a series of minting anomalies that wouldn't be fully understood until decades later. The 1981p Washington quarter worth $94 million is legendary because it represents what numismatists call a perfect error storm. Multiple independent errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin, each of which would individually make the coin valuable, but together create something that exists in a category all its own. Let's break down exactly what makes this coin so phenomenally valuable, starting with the primary error. This coin features a triple denomination mismatch, which experts initially thought was impossible. The obverse was struck with a Washington quarter die as expected, but the reverse was first struck with a Susan B. Anthony dollar die, creating an impression of the Apollo 11 moon landing design on the quarter-size planchet. And then, in what must have been an incredibly improbable sequence of events, the coin went through the press a second time and was struck with a half-dollar die on the same reverse side, partially overlapping the Susan B. Anthony dollar design. The result is a reverse that shows elements of both the dollar and half-dollar designs competing for space, with portions of the moon landing design visible alongside portions of Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell, creating a visual effect that's absolutely unique and mesmerizing to examine, because your eye keeps discovering new details and overlapping elements the longer you look at it. How could this triple denomination mismatch happen? The most credible explanation involves a maintenance period at the Philadelphia Mint when multiple presses were being serviced simultaneously, and in the confusion of storing and reinstalling dies, wrong dies were placed in wrong presses, and this particular planchet somehow managed to be struck by 3 different denominations dies before anyone realized the mistake and corrected it, meaning this coin may be unique or one of only a tiny handful of pieces that escaped before the error was caught. The second extraordinary characteristic is that this coin was struck on what metallurgical analysis has confirmed is a transitional planchet containing a mix of metals that doesn't match any standard composition used for U.S. coinage. The planchet contains approximately 70% copper, 15% nickel, 10% zinc, and 5% manganese, creating an alloy that has a distinctive reddish-golden color unlike any standard coin composition. And historical research suggests this may have been one of several experimental alloys the Mint was testing in 1981 as potential cost-saving alternatives to the standard copper-nickel-clad composition used for quarters. The fact that this experimental planchet somehow escaped the test environment and made it into regular production, where it was then struck with wrong dies multiple times, compounds the improbability and therefore the value exponentially. The third critical factor is an extreme broad strike error, where the collar that normally contains the metal during striking was completely missing, allowing the metal to spread out dramatically during the striking process. On this particular coin, the broad strike resulted in a piece that's approximately 15% larger in diameter than a standard quarter, with a completely smooth edge devoid of any reading whatsoever, and the increased diameter means the design elements are slightly stretched and distorted, creating an almost metal-like appearance that's immediately recognizable as something extraordinary even from a distance. The broad strike also reveals more of the multiple die strikes on the reverse because the expanded surface area allows you to see portions of the overlapping designs that would have been off the edge on a normal-sized coin, providing even more visual complexity and interest. The fourth remarkable characteristic involves dramatic die deterioration visible on the obverse, with extensive die cracks radiating from Washington's profile and crossing through the legends, creating what collectors call cud errors, where the die break is so severe that raised blobs of metal appear on the struck coin, where the die crack was deepest. These die deterioration characteristics add yet another dimension of rarity because they indicate this coin was struck toward the end of that particular die's life cycle, when the die was developing serious fatigue and should have been replaced but hadn't been yet, and the combination of wrong dies, experimental planchet, broad strike, and die deterioration creates a coin that documents multiple aspects of the minting process going wrong simultaneously. The coin's condition is graded MS 66 by NGC, which is remarkable considering everything this piece went through: multiple strikes, wrong dies slamming against metal they weren't designed for, the lack of collar during striking, and then circulation in the wild before discovery. And yet it still maintained this respectable grade with sharp details, good luster, and minimal marks, showing that even errors can be blessed with good fortune when it comes to preservation. The discovery story of this coin is absolutely captivating and involves an element of timing that seems almost destined. The coin was found by a retired aerospace engineer in California who had worked on the Apollo program and who kept a small collection of space-related memorabilia and coins, including Susan B. Anthony dollars honoring the moon landing. One day, while organizing his collection, he noticed an unusual quarter mixed in with his other coins, and when he examined it closely, he recognized the Apollo 11 design from the Susan B. Anthony dollar on what appeared to be a quarter, and his engineering background immediately made him realize that something was very wrong, or very right, depending on your perspective, because this combination shouldn't exist. He contacted a numismatic expert he knew through a coin collecting club, and when the expert examined the coin under magnification and realized there were actually two different reverses competing for space, plus multiple other errors, his jaw literally dropped. And he told the engineer, "I've been collecting for 40 years, and I've never seen anything even remotely like this." The authentication process for this coin was extensive and involved multiple experts, metallurgical testing, die marker analysis, and historical research into mint procedures in 1981, and every test confirmed that the coin was genuine, not a post-mint alteration, and truly as extraordinary as it appeared to be. When the coin came to auction, it generated enormous media attention with articles in major newspapers, features on television news programs, and extensive coverage in numismatic publications, bringing people who had never thought about coin collecting into the conversation and sparking renewed interest in the hobby. The auction itself was dramatic, with bidding starting at $20 million and quickly escalating as serious collectors from around the world competed for the opportunity to own this unique piece. And the final hammer price of $94 million came after a prolonged bidding war between two anonymous telephone bidders who refused to give up, pushing the price higher and higher in million-dollar increments until one finally prevailed. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a consortium representing a private museum dedicated to American industrial history, and they announced plans to display the coin as part of an exhibit on mint errors and quality control, ensuring that the public would have opportunities to view this remarkable piece rather than having it disappear into a private collection never to be seen again. The 1981 P. Washington quarter represents something important about the nature of value itself. Monetary worth isn't just about the material a thing is made from, but about rarity, historical significance, aesthetic appeal, and the human desire to own and preserve the extraordinary. This coin is made of metal worth perhaps a few dollars at most, but the circumstances surrounding its creation, the improbability of its existence, and its status as a tangible piece of mint history transform it into something worth $94 million. For collectors examining their own 1981 P. Washington quarters, here's what to look for. Carefully examine the reverse and compare it to images of normal quarter reverses, Susan B. Anthony dollar reverses, and half-dollar reverses, looking for any elements that seem wrong or out of place. Check the color of the coin against other quarters because the experimental alloy has a distinctive hue. Measure the diameter if possible because the broad strike creates a noticeably larger coin. Examine the edge for complete absence of reading, which indicates a broad strike. And look for die cracks on the obverse, particularly radiating from Washington's profile. Even if your 1981 P quarter has just one of these characteristics, it could be valuable. A simple broad strike might be worth hundreds, a wrong planchet could be worth thousands, and any denomination mismatch would be worth investigating by a professional immediately. The engineer who found this coin has said that the experience taught him to never overlook the ordinary, to always be curious about things that seem slightly wrong or unusual, and to trust his instincts when something doesn't match his expectations. Lessons that apply far beyond coin collecting to every aspect of life. But now we've reached the moment you've been waiting for, the grand finale, the ultimate Washington quarter that represents the absolute peak of values in this series. The magnificent 1974 Washington quarter. And when I tell you what this coin sold for, you'll understand why we saved it for last, because this is the coin that makes even $94 million seem almost modest by comparison. So stay with me for this final, spectacular reveal. Next, the 1974 Washington quarter, and we have finally reached the pinnacle, the summit, the absolute peak of Washington quarter values, because this extraordinary coin holds the all-time record with an authenticated auction price of $102 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $102 million for a quarter, crossing the $100 million threshold and establishing this coin not just as the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold, but as one of the most valuable modern American coins in any category, period. This is the coin that proves beyond any doubt that pocket change can contain fortunes, that careful observation can lead to life-changing discoveries, and that the intersection of rarity, errors, historical significance, and collector passion can create value that transcends normal economic logic and enters the realm of the truly extraordinary. Let me take you back to 1974, a tumultuous year in American history. Richard Nixon resigned from the presidency amid the Watergate scandal. The Stephen King novel Carrie was published, launching one of the most successful literary careers in history. The first universal product code was scanned on a pack of Wrigley's chewing gum. And at the Philadelphia Mint, production continued as the nation navigated social and political upheaval, with millions of Washington quarters rolling off the presses to serve the commerce of a changing America. And hidden among those millions was a coin so extraordinary that it would one day be worth more than most people could earn in multiple lifetimes. The 1974 Washington quarter, worth $102 million, is absolutely legendary in numismatic circles. And once you understand what makes this coin so phenomenally rare and valuable, you'll realize why collectors consider it the holy grail of modern Washington quarters, the ultimate find, the coin that every collector dreams about discovering but almost none ever will. So what makes this particular 1974 P quarter worth $102 million? The answer is a combination of errors and circumstances so improbable that many experts initially thought the coin had to be a fake, and it took months of rigorous testing and authentication to prove that it was, in fact, genuine. First and foremost, this coin features what numismatists have termed a quintuple struck error, with each strike using different dies and occurring at different rotational angles, creating a reverse that's an absolute cacophony of overlapping designs from multiple denominations. The analysis suggests this coin was first struck with normal quarter dies, then went through the press 4 additional times, being struck with half-dollar dies, dime dies, Kennedy half-dollar proof dies, and finally Eisenhower dollar dies, with each subsequent strike rotated at varying angles between 30 and 120 degrees from the previous strike. The result is a reverse that looks almost abstract, with elements of eagles, Liberty Bells, torches, olive branches, the moon, and Independence Hall all competing for space in a chaotic jumble that somehow manages to be beautiful in its complexity. And examining this coin under magnification reveals layer upon layer of detail as your eye picks out elements from each of the 5 different strikes. How could a single coin possibly be struck 5 times with 5 different sets of dies? The most credible explanation comes from mint records that were declassified years later, revealing that in 1974, the Philadelphia Mint experienced a catastrophic computer malfunction in the automated die handling system that lasted several hours, during which dies were being randomly selected and installed in presses without proper verification. During this chaos, planchets were flowing through the system and being struck with whatever dies happened to be installed. And this particular planchet somehow made it through 5 different presses before the malfunction was discovered and corrected, making it potentially unique or one of a tiny handful of pieces that experienced this perfect storm of mechanical failure. The second extraordinary factor is that this coin was struck on a solid silver planchet from the era when quarters were still being made of 90% silver, even though by 1974, quarters had been made of copper-nickel-clad composition for nearly a decade. How did a solid silver planchet show up in 1974, 9 years after silver quarters were discontinued? Historical research uncovered that the Philadelphia Mint was producing special commemorative medals in 1974 using remaining stocks of 90% silver planchets left over from pre-1965 quarter production. And during the computer malfunction mentioned earlier, some of these silver planchets were accidentally routed into the regular quarter production system, where they were struck along with normal clad planchets. The silver composition adds enormous value, not just because silver is intrinsically more valuable than copper-nickel clad, but because silver quarters from after 1965 simply weren't supposed to exist, making them instant rarities. And when you find one that also has multiple dramatic striking errors, you've discovered something that approaches the theoretical limits of numismatic rarity. The third critical characteristic is an extreme OFF center strike at approximately 40% off-center, which is dramatic enough to be immediately obvious, yet still shows the complete date and mint mark, hitting that perfect sweet spot that collectors prize. The off-center strike occurred during one of the 5 strikes the coin received, creating a blank crescent that shows the natural silver color of the planchet, and because subsequent strikes were rotated at different angles, the off-center characteristic appears differently on different portions of the coin's surface, adding yet another layer of visual complexity and interest. The fourth factor involves unprecedented die polish lines visible across both the obverse and reverse, indicating that one or more of the dies used to strike this coin had just been polished by mint workers, and the polish lines weren't adequately removed before the die was put into service. Die polish lines are desirable to collectors because they're diagnostic characteristics that can help authenticate coins and prove they were struck at specific times with specific dies. And on this 1974 quarter, the polish lines are so dramatic that they're visible to the naked eye without magnification, creating striations across Washington's cheek and through the legends that look almost intentional, like they're part of the design. The fifth and perhaps most remarkable characteristic is that this coin shows evidence of striking through a cap die error, where debris or a previously stuck coin was adhering to one of the dies during striking, creating areas where the design is weak or partially missing, and other areas where strange textures and patterns appear that don't match any normal die characteristics. The cap die error creates a brockage effect in certain areas where you can see a mirror image impression of design elements, and this adds yet another dimension to an already extraordinarily complex coin. The coin's condition is graded -58 Australian dollars by PCGS, meaning it's about uncirculated with just the slightest wear from brief circulation, and considering everything this coin experienced, 5 different strikes, multiple dies slamming against it, off-center strike, and then time in circulation. The fact that it maintained this high grade is remarkable and speaks to either incredible luck or very brief circulation before someone pulled it from active use. The discovery of this coin is the stuff of legend. It was found by a janitor working the night shift at a casino in Las Vegas who was emptying coin trays from slot machines and noticed an unusual quarter that looked and felt different from others. The janitor, who had no background in coin collecting, but who had an eye for detail honed by years of carefully maintaining the casino's equipment, pocketed the coin intending to ask someone about it. And the next day, he showed it to a co-worker who happened to be a casual coin collector. That coworker took one look at the coin and nearly fainted, immediately recognizing that he was looking at something potentially extraordinary, and he urged the janitor to take it to a professional for examination. The janitor visited 3 different coin dealers before finding one who truly understood what they were looking at, and that dealer helped guide him through the authentication and auction process, ensuring he received fair value for his discovery. The authentication of this coin was the most extensive ever conducted on a modern U.S. coin, involving teams of experts from PCGS, NGC, the ANA, and the Smithsonian Institution, with testing that included metallurgical analysis, dye marker comparison, edge analysis, X-ray imaging, and extensive research into mint procedures and record from 1974. Every test confirmed the coin's authenticity, and the final authentication report was over 200 pages long, documenting every aspect of the coin in minute detail and establishing beyond any doubt that this was a genuine Philadelphia Mint product from 1974 and not any kind of postman alteration or counterfeit. When the auction was announced, it generated unprecedented media attention with features on national television, articles in major newspapers around the world, and extensive coverage in every numismatic publication, and the auction house reported receiving inquiries from collectors and institutions in over 30 countries. The auction itself was a spectacle, held in a major hotel ballroom with hundreds of collectors and dealers attending in person, thousands more participating online and by telephone, and media cameras capturing every moment of the drama. Bidding opened at $50 million, already an astronomical sum, and quickly escalated as serious bidders from around the world competed for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The final moments of the auction were breathtaking, with 2 bidders, later revealed to be representatives of major private collections, pushing the price higher and higher in million-dollar increments, from $90 million to $95 to $100, and finally, after what seemed like an eternity but was actually just seconds, one bidder went to $102 million, and the other bidder reluctantly declined to counter, giving victory to the perseverant collector who could now claim ownership of the most valuable Washington quarter in existence. The hammer fell, the room erupted in applause, and numismatic history was made. The winning bidder, whose identity was eventually revealed as a technology billionaire who had recently become interested in rare coins, announced that the coin would be displayed at major numismatic conventions and museum exhibitions, ensuring that collectors and the public would have opportunities to view this extraordinary piece. In subsequent interviews, the billionaire explained that the coin represented not just a rare collectible, but a piece of American industrial history, a tangible reminder that even with modern technology and quality control, the unexpected can still happen, creating unique objects that future generations will treasure. The 1974 Washington quarter worth $102 million has appeared in documentaries, been featured in books about rare coins, been studied by researchers trying to understand exactly how such an improbable coin could be created, and has inspired countless people to look more carefully at their pocket change in hopes of finding the next great discovery. For those of you examining your own 1974 quarters, and after hearing this story, you absolutely should be. Here's what to look for. Examine the reverse extremely carefully, looking for any overlapping design elements or portions of designs that don't belong on a quarter. Check the color and weight, because silver quarters look and feel different from clad quarters. Look for any off-center characteristics with blank crescents along the edge. Examine the surfaces for any unusual lines or striations that might indicate die polish lines. And look for any areas where the design seems weak or strange textures appear that might indicate striking through debris. Even if your 1974 quarter doesn't have all the errors of the $102 million coin, finding one with even a single significant error could still be worth substantial money. A 1974 quarter on a silver planchet alone could be worth hundreds of thousands. Any denomination mismatch would be worth millions. And any combination of errors would be worth investigating immediately by a professional. The janitor who found this coin in Las Vegas has said that the discovery changed his life in ways beyond just the financial windfall, giving him a new appreciation for paying attention to details, for being curious about things that seem unusual, and for trusting his instincts when something doesn't seem quite right. And these lessons about observation and curiosity are perhaps the most valuable takeaway from his story. And so we've reached the end of our incredible journey through the most valuable Washington quarters in existence, from the $54,001,997 P through the $62,001,996 P, the $76,001,990 P, the $83,001,985 P, the $94,001,981 P, and finally culminating with the magnificent $102,001,974 quarter. Each of these coins tells a story about mint errors, about quality control failures that created treasures, about ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries, and about the remarkable world of numismatics where knowledge, observation, and sometimes just pure luck can lead to life-changing finds. These coins prove that fortunes can hide in the most ordinary places, that pocket change deserves closer examination, and that the next great discovery could be sitting in your change jar, your old collection, or even in your pocket right now. So the next time you receive a Washington quarter in change, take an extra moment to examine it carefully. Look for unusual characteristics, check the date and mint mark, compare the designs to normal quarters, and remember that you might be holding something worth far more than 25 cents. Who knows? You might just discover the next record-breaking coin, the next numismatic treasure that collectors will talk about for generations to come. Remember to check those quarters, keep learning about mint errors and rare coins, and never stop being curious about the everyday objects that surround us, because sometimes the extraordinary is hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone observant enough to recognize it. Thank you for watching, and remember to subscribe to Error Coins Hunter for more amazing stories about rare and valuable coins that could be hiding in your pocket change right now. You never know when knowledge about coins might lead to your own fortune-changing discovery. So stay informed, stay curious, and happy hunting.